So hey guys, welcome to a new video discussion. I definitely want to do more of these here on my channel. I know I haven't really done a lot of these lately, so I definitely wanted to do, coming back to doing these kind of things again. I definitely wanted to take on a subject matter that has definitely, I definitely have a lot of thoughts on, a pretty strong opinion on. And with the Oscar nominations just recently posted, this topic definitely came back to me. Definitely came back to my frame of mind again. Got me thinking about it again too. And then my today's topic is going to be good films versus interesting subject matters. And the reason why I bring this up is because I think when people critique a film or when people, judge on what they think is a good film or, a film that they really like the subject matter on, it's kind of hard for some people to differentiate the two. And, I blame myself sometimes too on this. I mean, there's definitely a lot of subject matters covered in film that, a lot of us just really have a strong interest in, and when we go down and sit down and finally see that film, we feel like we have to love it. We have to list it as our all-time favorite film because we love that subject matter, or we love that adaptation, or we love that book, or we love that comic book, or we love that superhero, or we love that character, or we love that franchise. And there's just so many different elements to it that we feel like we absolutely have to turn off the negatives and completely think positive thoughts about just because we love that subject matter so much. And I think that's what this video is mostly about, is kind of differentiating, if I can even say that right, a good film and a film with an interesting subject matter. Because I think when people critique a film, they kind of have a hard time differentiating the two, like I said. And I think it's very important to do that because it could kind of mess up your perception on films, and after a while, it might be hard to say exactly what makes a good film and a bad film, and how some films get a free pass and they really shouldn't. I mean, because every film's going to have their flaw and their moment in the sun and things like that. So I guess to kind of go over some points, I think for a film to be called good, a good film, I think it can mean it can be well executed, it can be well shot, but it doesn't necessarily have to have the most interesting subject matter in the world for us to appreciate it, I don't think. There's a lot of historical biopics, specifically for me too, where I don't know a lot about that time period, or there's something about it that I'm new with it about. But if it's well, it could still be well executed. I mean, it could still have a great script, and it could be well shot, and could have a good director on board to make sure that the lighting is good and the editing is good, that their own little style is established. And that it fits that subject matter well and everything. But I think good films don't always have to have an interesting subject matter. In a way too, some of the films that surprise us throughout our lives are sometimes the ones where we kind of go into it saying, "Oh, this is probably not going to be great," or my girlfriend or my wife or my brother or my sister, made me sit down and watch this with them, and who knows, you may come out loving it, because you go into it knowing that you're thinking you're not going to like it, but you end up coming out of it being like, you know what, that was actually pretty good. I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I did, that I was going to. For my next point too, a good film doesn't necessarily have to interest you. There's definitely a lot of notable directors, for me at least too, where I love that director. I have faith in any project that they take on, but at the same time, what they might view as interesting might not always be what I view as interesting either. I guess a good example of this is, I love Paul Thomas Anderson. I think he has a very unique way of unconventional storytelling, and sometimes that unconventional storytelling can be really interesting. But um, I recently reviewed Inherent Vice. I thought it was an okay film. And I definitely still like Paul Thomas Anderson as a director, and I liked a lot of the things he was trying to do with that film, specifically with the approach and the narration, and kind of finding a vibe that's between Cheech and Chong and Chinatown, and figuring a way to kind of combine those two together. Um, but that kind of goes back to my point where I didn't have to completely love the subject matter to appreciate what he was doing with it. Um, It can also be a notable acting performance. Like recently, I saw Foxcatcher, not the greatest film in the world, but Steve Carell's performance and Mark Ruffalo's performance were both very, very good in it. And in a way, their performances kind of saved the film from becoming bad for me in a way. So, there's just so many different elements to what can classify a film as good or bad. And for someone like me who really kind of critiques several elements of the film and not just oh, do I like the subject matter and is it entertaining. There's definitely a lot more elements to it than what meets the eye for most people. So, and then my next point was an interesting subject matter can have a great concept, but it could still be a flawed movie. And I think this is definitely one of the biggest points I want to make with this video. The Film Academy, they love their World War II films. They love war films. They love political films. They love their historical biopics. They love the, films where, like for Charlize Theron for Monster, where she had to gain tons of weight and really had to completely change her appearance, completely change her personality for the role. Um, but in a way, just because we love what the film's trying to do, or what the concept is, or what the or, what's being adapted on screen, or if it's a historic point in history that we absolutely love, like World War II or Vietnam, or things that we love to see films about. We don't have to like it just because we like the subject matter. It can still be a pretty flawed movie. In fact, there's a ton of cases, and I definitely wanted to bring up this film. I love the Iron Man franchise, but I got to be completely honest with you. Iron Man 3 had tons of flaws with it. There's things to this day that still really bother me about that film, and that's really too bad because Iron Man 1's one of my all-time favorite films, and I love Iron Man 2 as well, and I love the Avengers. But when it came to Iron Man 3, I don't hate the film. It's just I had a ton of problems with it, and there's just a ton of things that still kind of bother me about it to this day, just because there's just a lot of flaws about it that I really didn't care for. And I think sometimes it's hard for people to say something that they hate about something just because they're a part of the fan base and they feel like they have to like it. So, and then my next point was, what is my next point? A film with an interesting subject matter shouldn't get a free pass. I guess that goes to my next point where, when I saw the film The Lone Ranger, for example, I loved the trailers for it. It looked like an interesting film. I loved that Gore Verbinski from Pirates of the Caribbean was a part of it. It had the same screenwriters as the Pirates of the Caribbean films. And, everything about that film could have been great. But it just wasn't. It just, there's just a lot of things wrong with that production that, to this day, I really didn't care for that movie. I thought it was okay at times, but there's just a lot of problems with that movie. That kind of goes back to the Iron Man 3 thing again, where I love the subject matter, I love what they're trying to do, I love the people involved with it, I love the cast involved with it. I in a way a part of that fan base of what the subject matter is. But I'll be honest with you, there's both films were loaded with flaws, and they kind of hurt my opinion on the movie, to be honest. And I think that just goes to show, just because you really love a subject matter or a time in history or a book of some kind, you don't have to love that film just because you love that book or you love that time in history. I think it's important to appreciate a good film, know what a good film is, is the script good? Is the acting good? Is if it's based on a book, how well does it adapt the book? Does it do something that's interesting and unique and, it kind of differentiates from the book in a good way, for all purposes of making a good and possibly a better film and a better story than what the book was. I think all those things are pretty interesting when critiquing a film. So hopefully this video helped you out. Hopefully it kind of gave you some food for thought and really helped you kind of separate the two, because I think there is such thing as appreciating a good film and appreciating a film that's covering a subject matter that you really like. And I think that really goes for the Film Academy too, because I mean, look at all the stuff that gets nominated for them. It's mostly historical biopics or things that deal with civil rights, and it's just like, let's kind of mix it up a little bit. You're kind of choosing the same things all the time, and we all of us as people do the same things too. All of us who love superhero films, we keep going to them, and people who love World War II films, they're going to keep going to them, and nothing is going to stop them from making these films or causing people to stop seeing these films. But Um, I think there is a point where, there's a difference between a good film and a film with an interesting subject matter. Problem is, the film with the interesting subject matter could still be bad, but the good film could always be a good film. So, like I said, hopefully this was good food for thought for you guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Leave a comment down below. Did you like or didn't like what I was talking about? Do you think these things could be one and the same? Do you think it is important to separate the two? Let me know. And hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys here for next time.